With too much light, one is blinded. With too much darkness, one is unable to see. Through balance and harmony of both light and darkness, one is able to see with perfect clarity.
You've got to learn to recognize your own depths.
I don't hold anything against myself, so I don't hold anything against other people, right?
Reminding you of things that you already know.
We need to plant the seeds to the true spiritual beings that are here within the matrix.
If I hear something and it touches this little chord in my heart that says that right there is a nugget of truth.
You know, does history repeat itself or does it rhyme? What the hell really goes on?
Before you engage with the world, oil yourself with consciousness and silence, you see. Bring your mind into your heart, and the world will not trouble you.
Free of the halls where life reigns supreme. Sons are they, and lords of the morning. Children of light shine among men. Like man they are, and yet are unlike.
So the question is, what on earth would have to happen to get a lot of these people awake? It would have to be something cataclysmic. It doesn't have to be physically cataclysmic, but it can be like mentally, psychologically, emotionally, just like world-shattering.
We truly are in an amazing fucking time, and we are truly gifted to be able to be a part of this madness of beauty.
The agendas at this point, to me, it's so obvious that, you know, it's not even funny. I don't understand how the masses can be under such a spell, and that's what it is, right? It is a spell. I don't understand how they can all, you know, just continue to capitulate, continue to go along with this. And it's this obvious, you know, and it's this obvious. But at the same time, we do know that as these things increase, right, as the birthing pangs begin, as the sorrows roll out, we're one day closer to our victory. We're one day closer to our transfiguration. We're one day closer to all of this being over, whether it be a simulation or, you know, I'll leave that to you, you know, what you believe this place is, whether you think it's a simulation, a program, or a school, a training ground. I mean, a lot of people have a lot of different schools of thought. The point being, though, you know, the point being is we're here now, and there's obviously something special about you, right? If there wasn't, you wouldn't be aware while the rest of the world sleeps. You know, you wouldn't care while the rest of the world is, you know, self-absorbed, focused only on their own self, you know? You wouldn't be aware, you wouldn't be seeking truth if there wasn't something awesome about you. And I think it's amazing that we have people at all at this point that still have that divine spark, that still thirst for the truth and knowledge.
Just remember,
Namaste.
Whatever it may be, you've designed it.
So all is connected. All is most definitely self.
It's a powerful time. It's a very powerful time.
The key is learning how to interact with yourself through others. How to teach yourself through others. How to learn about yourself through others in your reality. Every conversation, every interaction with another being is something more that you are learning about yourself. And it is a giving and receiving.
There's a lot of people down here that have probably had incarnations in other spheres in the multiverse.
A giving and receiving. And as you teach what we would call projections, you are in turn nourishing and pouring into yourself. So you are teaching yourself. So this is a win-win situation. Always. When you become this level of awareness and remembering what this is, then you realize that it is once again a win-win situation when you are pouring in to others in a way of in turn pouring into yourself.
How would you know great purity and great goodness if you didn't know great illness and great evil?
We came here knowing it's a fallen world.
Saturn worship. They want to cull the population, but they want to keep enough because they need us. They can't function without us. They don't have creative abilities themselves. We're the ones who are creators. They've hijacked our subconscious because we're creative beings, and they're using us to create the false reality.
The religions of the world are lies.
I want you to feel this frequency.
God's within you.
Which is the problem that we face. I mean, people have just got to remember who and what they are, and we can change the world in a day. I love what you're doing, guys.
The mind is your greatest enemy. That fucking voice.
What is the unveiling, John?
The genetic upgrade of the human being. The Star Children. The fight. The war.
What fight? What war?
The war for the control of humanity.
We can find the first clue in archetype.
Self-awareness, self-observation, by definition, must be non-local. It must be outside of the parameter set of what is being observed. Meaning, if you're seeing your thoughts, then you are beyond the layer of reality that your thoughts exist within. Otherwise, you couldn't see them at the same time as them happening. You could think them and then afterwards go back and look at what happened. But if you're seeing them as they're occurring, then you're beyond them. There's a difference between reflecting and introspection and seeing them as they occur. The self-aware version of you outside this reality sees, and the avatar is what reacts and experiences. The true observational element of you is outside the system. But you have to be in that observational perspective, the seat of the soul, in order to integrate that, which is your true self. And when more you do that, the more your avatar begins to act like a soul instead of like an animal. And that's the dichotomy of man and beast.
This limited or limiting version of the game, and the limiting version of the game has been a very significant piece because it's about discovering all the possibilities of coming here and being human. And I think that's really important for us to understand. It's like we're astronauts and travelers, and here we are. Our job was to come and to live all of the potential, experiencing the human experience in this version of reality.
Let the show begin.
There's a new version of us that's trying to emerge here.
Yes.
From within.
Yes.
Okay.
When you pour intention into something, the fucking probabilities change.
Is art imitating reality, or is art writing reality?
That's a deep one, bro.
It's just really using your intentions more. On the inside, silently.
All you have to do is deepen your knowing.
Home is where the heart is.
And the shepherd is syncretism.
You are home. You, the essence of who you are a traveler. Did you forget?
Illuminated people working in the shadows to tear down the system.
They're stuck in their brain. They don't understand transcendental science, which comes from the heart. We have opened our hearts. We love the truth. We live for truth. We are the true ones.
Glory from where we come from.
No one has the right to force a worldview upon others. We have the right to speak what the truth is. I can't ultimately force it on anybody. I could just show an ignorant person how they've been deceived.
And sometimes we get injured so bad, it seems impossible to climb that ladder. You have to realize it's not a ladder. We can lay it down.
But it's still part of this life that we've conscientiously and consciously chosen to come into.
Mm-hmm. Go with the flow, right? And go in resonance and in tune. It's not a ladder that we need to climb in difficulty, right? You know this. It's already there. It's already given to us. They laid it down. And that's through knowledge and everything and through integration.
It's part of living in the physical experience. How do you become a master within this realm of, the Maya, the realm of illusion, and, the realm of duality and polarity, right?
And you gotta see that. You gotta realize that, and it's okay. But now we gotta say, where do we go from here?
And when you're in an extremely high level of knowledge and awareness, you need fear nothing. Ignorance is what creates fear. Refusal of truth is what creates fear.
Your own interpretation of reality is real. This past year proved all of us right, and to me that's a big moral of this story, and a big thing to take away from all this is, if we were all crazy conspiracy theorists this whole time, why are we right?
Right.
Why are we right? We're just getting to that point where now it's just so obvious.
The whole world worshiping the devil, man.
All experiences are good. The dark ones are the best because they're the most enlightening, they're the most empowering, and they are the encounters we can learn the most from. They are the most crucial encounters, the dark ones. So you have to stand in more of your truth even more. We're in a time frame now where the dark is coming to the light for purification. I call it point zero, and that's where we're heading to right now. As a matter of fact, we're in it right now.
It's all dealing with you. Everything, all this symbolism is us.
Collectively, if we all start working on ourselves, so that in our own lives, if enough of us are doing that, then we could expect there to be a reflection of that work appearing in history.
What we want to do is really start exercising the muscle, the invisible muscle of presence. The more present you are, the more conscious you become. So what does that mean? It means that you enlarge in your capacity to be able to hold more energy. So presence equates to consciousness. And when you're conscious, you're able to hold more energy, more light, more information, and it's all the same thing.
View their system to shine light onto that darkness and expose it for what it is.
The intensity is increasing, but that means a higher temperature that burns out the lower shit.
But I can say that people are going to start waking up at a very deep level inside themselves.
If we do have power to manipulate our environment, are we hacking the matrix by doing the work we're doing? And are we pointing out that there will be some kind of sudden collective realization that this reality is not what it seems, and we break out of it in some way?
If you ask those questions, why am I here? Why am I on this planet at this time? Why is this mind control so strong? Why can't I get through to people? You're on the path. You're on the path.
You knew. My friends, we came here as light beings. We dropped into this human body to liberate humanity.
It appears we have been in an energy extraction system, but this whole time, it's actually been our own unresolved inner playing out on the outside, so we can observe it and transmute it through that observation.
The Latin word for space is the same as time.
And you realize how easy it would be to stop that evil simply by casting light on it, just by exposing it.
We are the expression of God.
Live creatively.
Truth and freedom. That is the savior of your existence.
They're chained inside of a cave. They're looking at a wall, and on the wall they kind of see this projection.
Do you see men passing along the wall, carrying all sorts of articles which they hold projected above the wall? Statues of men and animals made of wood and stone and various materials?
They gave us things we didn't know of. They gave us a belief system that took us further away from ourselves than it actually is supposed to.
Being is a process.
So the realization really boils down to a simple truth, which is the world really isn't the way we were told it was. And now that is very, very self-evident, and there's no real escape from that. And the problem looks very doom-laden when we imagine that the only way to solve that problem is by shuffling around the same pieces on the game board that represent that problem. And of course that isn't really a viable way forward, and you can't kind of solve the problem with the same consciousness or the same mindset that created the problem. So always with these things, it brings us back to what are we going to do in our own lives, because that's where the whole thing for me emanates from. And many spiritual philosophical systems and traditions and sects and so on have grappled with these questions for aeons, for many, many millennia. It's nothing new, this. It's always been like this. And it's not suddenly got a lot worse. It's just suddenly got a lot clearer.
Know thyself and you will know God.
So the problem now is a big high definition issue right in front of your eyes. It's not a rumour, it's not a notion, and it's not a vague or faint possibility. It's something that is right there, we can see it. It doesn't function, the system is broken.
Know thyself and you will know the truth.
It's a war of information, it's a war of ideas.
Don't worry.
Really, whether you want to look at this from a geopolitical perspective or realpolitik or esoteric perspective, New World Order, conspiratorial, or whether you want to zoom out a little bit and see this as consciousness and a spiritual journey. You know, all these things are valid, credible avenues of inquiry. They all show us things that are significant. They're all important to contemplate it. And it's no use just focusing on just one, because you only see one facet of this object. So the realization, this truth, brings us back onto the focus of us, ourselves, as individuals, not even as a group, but as you, the listener, as you, the thinker, as the experiencer. And what does this mean, this perception, this realization in your day-to-day life?
Because time is an illusion, and you truly live in a multidimensional universe where past, present, future are an illusion.
I learned some of my best lessons from some of the worst experiences, right? So don't be afraid to bring in those things and to look in those channels. You'll never learn if you're just looking in the light. You'll be like a moth. When those lights turn out, you're going to go to the fake light like a moth to the flame, and you're going to freaking die, bro.
Mass hysteria is the first and foremost threat to anything. That's what you're up against. You know, the panic of people who want to be in panic, who have never been alone, never been still for 15 seconds.
Fundamentally understanding that the idea that when we rewire our inner landscape, that is the only thing that shifts the outer landscape, which is liberation, clarity, cooperation, harmony, knowingness.
It's all about you.
We are hacking this reality from the inside out, breaking it apart with different concepts, ideas, and truths, and driving it to darkness. This is how it's done. It doesn't matter whether you're right or wrong.
So they're not the majority, but one person, can themselves maybe change the game. It's one bit at a time.
So what's so important about that? What's so important about that is you come in, and we extol you to come in and to be in meditation here. And what are you doing? When you're in meditation, you're bringing light in from the outside.
The veil is being lifted at this time. It seemed like chaos, but everything happening is going the way it's supposed to go.
How do you live? Do you live outside in or inside out?
It is the DNA from one source communicating with the DNA in you.
Maybe because you need darkness to see light.
Beloved Mother, who imparts to all the sense of choice, so we may finally come to choose you who are truth, and thus find everlasting freedom. Glory to your name, O Truth.
The core idea is to find salvation, to find healing.
The light shines in the darkness.
Ideas of a people who call themselves the Gnostics, and they see a dark force at work in the universe, which is seeking to snuff out the divine spark in humanity. And it's a supernatural force. And what they say is that the entity who we've been taught for the last 2,000 plus years to believe is God, the God of Abraham, who may be called Yahweh or who may be called Allah, that from the Gnostic point of view, that's not a god at all. That's a demon. That's a lower level supernatural who's got this huge inflated ego, who wants to be praised and worshipped, who's constantly urging his followers on to acts of violence and war.
There's the natural creator of this universe, and then there's the god of religions.
Maybe it's just the dark side of the human psyche.
They are actually giving life to egregores, demons that these guys have actually created. Monsters that give us hell and want blood.
I think Gnosticism is a very useful tool to look at the society we live in today. They believed that there were entities called archons, who are evil angels who disguise themselves as human beings and mingle with us to drive us into all manner of crimes and behavior that is hostile to the nature of the soul. And that's what I see happening everywhere. But they believed fundamentally we are good and that we have this light within us, and that the way to reveal that light is through knowledge. And actually, I would say this is true. We are defined by our choices. It's through our choices that we grow. And if we're ignorant of the context, how can we hope to grow?
Because you fear what you might discover.
This is already going on. Shadow work is already going on. In fact, that's why we call it unconscious. All you're doing is become consciously aware of what is going on unconsciously.
The truth will come out, and it's going to come out more and more and more, and nobody can help that. So really, the power is in the hands of the people. They just haven't realized it yet.
When I say it's already ongoing, I mean that it's because the whole of modern ego existence, ego consciousness, is itself in a healing sphere, a healing phase from the old ancestral trauma.
We have to integrate our own shadow.
The first chapters of Dragon Mother had to factor this in, because everything we experience in history is a slow, gradual healing from an old ancestral trauma that, the ego has dissociated from. That's why we have ego defenses. All the psychologists in the world know about ego defenses, but very few of them know what we're talking about. You wouldn't believe why the ego has defenses. It's got defenses for things we can't even fathom, that are not even factored in by most psychology today, not factored in by sociology. And that is that the brain, the mind, the consciousness was severely traumatized by terrestrial, cataclysm and all the rest of it. And Julian Jaynes touched on this, Immanuel Velikovsky, but really it was never delved into that deeply.
This resonates with us. This is the knowledge that make us get up off our knees and stand up.
Why denial has arisen? Why self-deception? Why schizophrenia? I mean, this original seedbed of trauma is the soil for all pathology. Although later on the pathology takes on bizarre, twists and turns, right? But again, to answer your question, shadow work then becomes the individual's way to deal not only with something ontogenetic, a personal hang-up from his childhood.
I don't need to believe, I know.
But this wider seedbed of ancestral trauma. Because all later trauma, above it, right? Later, in other words, in history, if they're constantly traumatized, it's like these little keys, little antenna, little tuning forks. If trauma is constantly, hitting on them, finally by the law of resonance, which is a cosmic law just like light, is awakening the deeper dragon of trauma below. So shadow work to me is, as Jung said, a deepening look at working to see who your archetypes were, which ones are friendly, which ones aren't. I think if you do your shadow work with this in mind, it's actually better. It improves the situation. When you realize that the shadow is not just a personal shadow, it is an ancestral one. All human beings suffered trauma, both in the terrestrial sense and then in the psychological sense. So there's a resonance has been set up. And so this is the character of the shadow. Once you start getting in touch with the shadow, it might have a character that is so utterly bizarre that unless you know what we're talking about now, unless you have identified the shadow, it's going to be impossible to heal.
Everything unfolds from the inside out. All of our disharmony comes from not understanding this.
Whatever happens, do not consent, do not comply. And I say that, and I really mean this, to my death, I will not, because I will not betray my heart. I will not betray the divine, the spirit within.
Do not consent. Do not consent.
It is the heart. Listen to the heart knows.
Just remember, you have a choice.
They already lost. They already lost. So the storyline is over, but we're just playing it out.
The Spirit of God can't serve you outside of you. The Spirit of God can't serve you trapped in a four-wall building. You put the Spirit of God in a prison and then start praying for it to save you. When the Spirit of God inhabited you, you didn't have to look up for it. You just looked in the mirror at it. When the Spirit of God inhabited man, you didn't have to drive to a building to get in contact with it. It was with you wherever you was. Being born into this world, it's a test. I'm teaching you that everything in life is a test, and it ain't what happened to you, it's how you respond, because your response gonna dictate how your energy transform based upon the event.
Choices that you make will shift different timelines.
What is the sight that can see beyond time?
I'm telling you, this spiritual warfare.
The kingdom of heaven is within you. Go in and find out who you really are.
The darkness can't overcome the light if the light is aware that it is a light.
Love is standing firmly in truth and defending it.
And have the courage to be true to yourself.
The time is now.
That's what love is, okay? It's saying what is accurate, what is real, what is true, what is moral.
There's an evolutionary process of consciousness of spirit in which every human being is in some way returning to the one, or returning to God, or awakening, or coming back into being conscious. They get lost in the separateness, in the island, forgetting the ocean.
Don't let anyone put your fire out.
If I love, and I have love in my heart, then I have the spirit to coexist with others, to be responsible and reasonable, to question authority. The essential message of Gnosticism is the key ingredient for the planetary shift.
Dying world of time and space. That's why in the Nagamat Gnostic Gospels they call this archonic world an abortion, because it's not even a reflection of the glory from where we come from. The glory of who we really are. And when we discover that glory through quiet contemplation called meditation, then we begin to not conquer the world, but conquer the world in us. And that is the secret.
I love that.
Learn to go within yourself.
All the world's a stage.
Is that preservation of truth and spreading that knowledge around the world.
We have no other thing to do, guys. We are warriors. There's no jobs. There's no corporate ladders. There's no Joneses to keep up with. That's all a crock. That's all an illusion. Our true destiny, our true calling was to vanquish the lies. And we do it with our hearts.
So it's all you.
View these people as teachers. They're showing you what is within you. Be grateful for them.
Evil contains within it the seeds of its own destruction.
Meeting the shadow and being forced to deal with it.
In your own life going forward, when you are exposed to these catalysts on the worldwide scale,
we've got to learn to unlearn.
It's up to you how you let it affect you, whether it brings you down or whether it kind of helps you transcend into a higher state. So no matter what happens, it's always important to take the higher perspective and therefore not fall into what a lot of other people might fall into in the immediate future.
Actually empower yourself. And that's what the healing is all about.
Always go with your intuition. Always go with your gut. Go with your feeling.
What we need to do is bring everything inward and be. We need to walk the walk.
A servant of humanity and self, fully integrated.
You lock us down, all right, okay, you lock us down, well then we take you down. How about that?
We are the remedy.
It seems like we're in a system where we are the co-creators of reality, but we're being made to believe that we're not. And so therefore we're being coerced towards allowing a certain future to take place, even though people are not really aware of what they're allowing. And so individuals like us and others who are highly conscious that understand what their actions do to the world around them and what their thoughts do, they become like beacons in this storm of consciousness, because most are just freely giving up their ability to co-create. We exist in a world where we have a very limited spectrum of this physical reality around us, and most of what's going on around us is non-physical in other dimensions and in other planes of reality that are beyond our comprehension.
This is an ancient meditation. This is an ancient meditation that I am not the flesh. I am the energy, the consciousness, the being in the flesh. And this is proof. This is no faith. This is not religion. This is actual fact.
The real work and the real magic is in the silence on the inside with the intention. Let's tap back into that shit. If anything that I'm going to leave here or quote unquote teach or remind you guys of is that.
And so really what I'm saying is that the universe is getting its act together. It's connecting the dots. It's bringing everything into co-relationship with everything else. And somehow it does this through the production of consciousness.
We begin to practice being the observer, witnessing.
What is real is experience. What is real is this moment. And so then what it becomes about is what are the frontiers of experience? How much of that has been taken away from us by these dominators, by these priesthoods, by these cults?
However, there is an evolutionary movement that will continue to push us beyond where we are today. And the thing which is going to be pushed is our soul, and that at some point we will have these experiences of elevated consciousness in which higher realities are not only seen but lived, and ultimately we come into perfection, whether we like it or not. Yeah? Our responsibility is our responsibility. That's good.
Well, the interesting thing I've begun to notice over the years is that what you want me to say is something you already know. And how do I know that? Because I say something infinitely wise that only the wisest people would understand. And you nod. So if you nod, you know. And I realize that what we are is in the predicament of having to say over and over to ourselves, it's like the old stories, the kind of spiritual essence of our being. We have to just keep reminding ourselves, and we come together for this process, and we all need it. I need it too.
From the Tao Te Ching, it says, "He who speaks does not know, and he who knows does not speak."
There is a rebellion that can't be stopped.
And I see the absolutely bizarre humor, my predicament.
To be in the witness seat.
And I realize that I have to be both of those. I have to be that part in me that is not speaking, that knows, and the part of me that's speaking that doesn't really know. And hopefully they're connected.
What I would like to see is the I that knows me when I know that I know that I know.
But when you make human eyes serve as God's eye, you will attain the sovereignty, and that's the greatest trick.
And with self-consciousness, we didn't need gods to be healers, because with the knowledge of self, you can heal yourself. You are the God. So it's time to get back to the knowledge of self.
Ali, if you're watching this, brother, what up, man? You're the man. And he says this all the time. If you stare at the light, you'll be blind. But if you stare at the dark, you can't see. So it is a mix of the two.
You know, I said it the other night. I mean, we're definitely here up to all support one another. But in the end, nobody's going to save you but yourself.
That's it. That's it.
Namaste to everyone out there. Thank you to all
Namaste.
the new viewers. Thank you to the Soul family that's always here. I truly
Love you guys, man.
Y'all make it possible, and y'all truly bring joy to my life, so thank you.
And when we connect, we can remember.
One love.
And always remember.
Eyes wide